Hey everybody, Professor Shu here. I am recording this video because I am out of town and I'm not 100% sure tomorrow what's going to happen with the login. That's happened a couple of times where I am in a location where my login and my Wi-Fi it's too slow, and then I can't have class. And so I wanted to pre-record this in an area where I know that I'm getting good Wi-Fi, so that if I can't log in tomorrow, then y'all are able to see the video. And so I just want to say a couple things. We are done with Field 3. We are almost done. Y'all are right there at the end. Y'all have done fantastic. Remember to get all those signatures in by the end of workshop 8, and we will be heading into Field 4. You are almost done. Y'all have been a fantastic group. I'm really excited. I know this can be really tiring and exhausting, and but y'all are almost there. So keep pushing through. Remember that in Field 4, we're going to be working on our field portfolios. So I hope that y'all have really listened to me and have been collecting all that evidence so you can just write up and type up your documents, your rationale statements. Those are going to be so easy for y'all if you have your pieces of evidence. And I know that y'all are all working on your learning contracts and just checking those things off. You know, look through your learning contract and really make sure, have I gotten everything accomplished that I want to get accomplished? Because you got 8 weeks left. That's it. So focus on those things that you want to get accomplished. But just keep it up. Y'all are doing great. If you have any questions, text me. Remember, texting is the quickest way you're going to get a hold of me. So I'll do that. Today, I want to kind of finish up our conversation on the marriage work, and I want to talk a little bit about the speaker-listener role. And so in speaker-listener role, we don't want to, we want to be heard. As a speaker, the whole role of speaker role is to be heard. And so in order to be heard, one of the things that I teach my clients is you want to speak from your heart. If you are speaking from a place that is not gentle, if you are starting from a place where you are not able to speak softly or slowly or kind of in smaller chunks so that you can be heard, then you actually need to go do the care cycle. And remember, the care cycle is those 5 steps, and it's the first step is I'm going to accept. Oh, I'm going to acknowledge. My button is pushed. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to go and ask God. Remember this 3rd step. If you're not a believer, we talked about that. You can leave that out. But I always add it in there, and I say, ask God or a trusted other. A trusted other is someone who you can trust that they're going to tell you the truth. Not someone who's just going to tell you what you want to hear, but somebody who's going to tell you the truth. Then the 4th thing is I'm going to attune to my heart. That attune to my heart is what's true about me, what's true about the other person, what's true about this situation. And what does God have to say about this? How old do I feel? Do I feel like I'm 13 again? And if so, I need to attune to even that part of my heart. And then after I attune to myself, I'm going to show up in action with who I want to be and the character I want to be. So, and I talked about the B list. I want to show up in my B list. So I want to show up kind. I want to show up compassionate. I want to show up gentle. I want to show up patient. Whatever it is that is in my B list. And so if I am not ready to have a conversation where I can be gentle, that means I still need to go care cycle. I still need to take that pause, and I need to slow down my heart so that I'm not in that reactive cycle. And remember, the reactive cycle is is I've got my trigger and I've got my reaction. So my trigger might be I feel disrespected, and my reaction might be I shut down. And then when I shut down, that triggers my partner, and maybe that makes them feel alone. And when they feel alone, then they chase. And when they chase, then I get triggered, and I feel pressured. I feel pressured. When I feel pressured, I get angry. And that reactivity may look like I yell. When I yell, that makes them feel what? Disrespected. When they're disrespected, then they yell. They may shut down. They may withdraw. They may, whatever that reactivity is. And that's the cycle. I call that the sucking soul vortex. The soul sucking vortex, round and round and round and round. So when we're in that cycle, the reactive cycle, we help our clients, and I will, when you finally at the end of all this get the things that I've been talking about in the reactive cycle, I help them identify what is your reactions, and what are your triggers, and what are your reactions, and then what are your wants. And in order to get to the wants, we have to pause. And we have to care cycle. And I had one client go, in session, I was saying, hey, you got to pause. You're reactive. You're reactive right now. We need to take a pause. She says, we have to pause every time? And I said, yeah, if you're reactive, you need to pause every time, because we'd never have a conversation. And I said, well, that might be what needs to happen right now, is that you don't have a conversation. You're not ready. And so they shoot out. Here's here, let me see if I can find a picture of this, since I don't have a PowerPoint up right now. They shoot out to their wants. What is it that we want? And the whole point of its speaker role is to go, I want to be heard. I want to be able to get my needs met. I want to feel good about this conversation. I want. And so they have to start out with the gentle startup. And that looks like slow, soft, small bites. And I'll talk in a minute a little bit more about those small bites. But you want to care about your own heart and ask your partner, ask your spouse, ask your child, ask your friend, are you available for a heart talk? And when they say, yes, I'm available for a heart talk, then I teach that it is important to not to be critical, not to blame, and not show contempt. We want to have a gentle startup, and we want to have I statements. So if our whole goal is to seek to be understood by expressing our heart message, then I teach this as I want you to talk about how you feel. I want you to talk about what you're afraid of, and I want you to talk about what you want. I feel, I fear, I want. Soft, slow, small bites. So I might say, hey, I want to talk to you about when I call you and you say, yep, you're going to be home for dinner at 6:00, and then you don't get home till 7. I feel hurt by that, and I feel confused by that. I fear that you don't take me serious, or I fear you don't care about dinner time. I fear that you don't think about me and consider me when you tell me that you're going to come home at 6 and then you come home at 7. Something like that. And then it says, what I want is, if you're going to be late, or if something comes up at the office, I want you to tell me, I want you to text me, or I want you to call me and let me know that. So that might be what it looks like. Soft, slow, small bites. So then it says the other person in listener role, what's their goal? Their goal is to identify the speaker's heart message, what they're feeling, what they fear, and what they want. The whole point of someone who is in listener role is to listen for understanding and to be able to validate the other person. So we have to postpone. So when I'm talking to someone who's in listener role, I go, you have to postpone your own agenda here because you want to be understood. You want to go, wait a minute, I'm not trying to disrespect you. My boss just called me into a meeting. I didn't even know. I left my phone in my office and okay, well, that's in the 10%. We're in the 90%, which is the heart message. The facts, logic, and reason do not comfort. I always teach that. Facts, logic, and reason, they do not comfort. And what heals hurt? Comfort heals hurt. So I need some comfort right now. And comfort is going to be validation. It's going to feel good for you to validate me. Okay, so in that listener role, allow your heart to be impacted. All right, listener, we want you to allow your heart to be impacted by how the speaker feels. What must it be like to feel A, B, C, D? So you will say that, wow, it must feel really, must really be painful if they really think that I don't respect them. Let what they're saying matter to you. So remember, the whole goal is to understand. So then when you do that teach to do it in the small bites and not long sentences, it's, okay, so what I hear you saying is, it sounds like you feel like this. You are afraid because of ... Am I understanding you correctly? Yes, that's what I hear you saying. Okay, is there anything else I need to understand about that? Well, actually, yes. Let me tell you a couple of other things. And so then you can say, okay, so, what you're wanting is, what I'm hearing, ... Is that right? Great. And then you offer validation. And validation happens on the speaker side and can be a great way to transition from listener role to speaker role. Validation does not need to happen at each and every opportunity, but it does need to be sincere and genuine. So when I say validation doesn't need to happen at every single opportunity, it means wait at the end, and it may just be, that matters to me. Thank you. I'm glad that you shared this with me. It's important to me. It doesn't mean that we agree. But it could be, that makes sense. I understand how you could feel that way. I understand how you could misunderstand the way I was communicating that. I can understand how that would come off that way. I can see how you would feel that. I could see how you would want that. But ultimately, it's trying to say, what you are saying to me matters to me. Thank you for sharing that with me because I really wanted to know about that. And so it's important to ask for time. And so it looks like, may I have a heart talk? Do you have time for a heart talk? May I have a heart talk with you? And if someone says, no, I really don't have time for a heart talk, that may activate us. And if we get activated, what do we need to go do? We need to go do a care cycle. We need to go manage, oh, that was painful, that hurt. What does that mean? I've been triggered. My button was pushed. Rather than becoming reactive, we go and care for our own heart. Now, if there is a partner who's saying, nope, I will never get into I don't want to talk about this. They need to go do the care cycle. Now, I always say, you don't need to tell somebody that they need to go do a care cycle. Their yard, their responsibility. And that's where that person would have to manage their expectations. And in a minute, we're going to talk about expectations. So, we want to teach that if I ask for a heart talk, if your spouse asks for a heart talk, it's their heart talk. It's not a time for you to go, well, yes, but I was feeling, and no. If you need a heart talk, then you can ask for them when they're done with their heart talk to say, do you have time for a heart talk? I'd like to have a heart talk with you. And that spouse has the right to say, you know what, right now, I just need this to be about me. And, can we pause to have that heart talk in a little while? You still need to have the heart talk. You never don't have the heart talk. It never just goes under the rug. But it does, you are allowed to say, I'm not ready for that heart talk. Okay. So I always start clients off with positive heart talks. So it might sound like, okay, we're going to practice in session a positive heart talk. And over the next week, y'all are going to practice once a day, doing a positive heart talk. You're going to say, hey, do you have time for a heart talk? Yeah, I have time for a heart talk. And you're going to say, I just want you to know that I've really noticed that at dinner time, you've been really intentional about, talking with the kids and not being shut down or not being on your phone. You've really been intentional about asking about their day and how they've been doing. And I feel really good about that. I feel really positive about that. And I feel really good about that. And I just wanted you to know that I love that. And I would love for more of that to be happening. The other person responds, thank you for sharing that with me. That makes me feel really good that you've noticed that. What I hear you saying is that you see that I'm really trying to be intentional at dinner time with the family. Is there anything else that you need me to know about that? No, I think that's it. I think you got it right. Oh, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable with me. That's it. Positive heart talk. So we can get some, good practice with the heart talk with the 90%. The other thing is when clients have a win like that, you want to say, okay, now celebrate it. Once you each do that positive heart talk, it doesn't have to be in the same time. It can be at different times. It can be at the same time of the day. You want to celebrate. Yes, we got our heart talk in. And so that they can get that dopamine hit. Every time you have a win in something, whether that's a habit, I made my bed. Yes, I had that goal of making my bed and I made my bed. Celebrate it. Even if it's just a high five, I did it. Because you're going to get that dopamine hit and it reinforces that in the brain. So they practice those positive heart talks. We also practice the harder heart talks in session, the things that are really hard. And that's where you as the therapist, you're in there to coach going, whoa, hold back. This is where you can use the pulsometers. So if you see we're getting off track here, somebody's heart rate's going up, you can pause and you can then in session practice a care cycle with someone. And man, practicing a care cycle with someone in a session is phenomenal. I've seen some amazing care cycles happen where we're going to attunement to the heart and we're doing some inner child work. We're doing, just insight building on this is my inner beliefs that I have about myself and this is what's happening right now. And the partner is being able to observe, my spouse is doing a care cycle and I'm getting to see their wound and really what's happening when they get triggered. So don't ever hesitate to pause and do a care cycle in session if that's needed and then get back into the heart talk. Okay, so once we have mastered a heart talk, then we're going to get to the work talk. And this is something I think I've talked to y'all about before, but in the work talk is 7 steps and it has a heart talk in it. So in the work talk, the first thing that's there, the step of the work talk is there are no losers in the work talk. So that's the commitment that we make. There are no losers. The second thing is we're going to have a heart talk. We're going to have a heart talk before we have a work talk. We also might need a care cycle before we do the heart talk. So there's a no loser policy. We're going to have a heart talk. We may need to do a care cycle before we do a heart talk. And then we're going to pray for unity. And that's that step that sometimes are like, I don't pray. Well, we're going to, you can teach that in a different way. We're going to be in agreement that we're on unity, that it's back to that. We want to stay unified, and we want to be in agreement on things. And then the fourth thing is we're going to brainstorm. This can take a couple minutes. This can take a week. We're going to brainstorm all the things that we need to, the ideas. I think I may have shared a little bit about this with y'all before, and about the person who they said they moved to Europe. They were like, we're going to move. We don't have any kids. Let's put everything, throw everything on the board that can possibly be on the board. And one of those things was let's move to Europe. And that ended up being the thing that they agreed on. So we throw every idea on the board, every single one of them on the board. And then we give each person a marker, and we go to the fifth step, evaluate. So everybody gets, the two people get a marker. If you're doing with the family, maybe everybody's deciding on a vacation. Everybody gets to mark off what's a no. This is a hard no for me, and I have to mark that one off. Now, if everything is nope, then you probably aren't entering into the work talk ready for a work talk. You need to go do some care cycling, and you need to be ready to be on board, because that's approaching the work talk with bitterness and with not a good attitude. You're not regulated if it's just no, and you're having that kind of attitude. So you mark off the things that are a no, and then you circle the things that these are like my top 3. And then the person can go, okay, well, look, we have both circled this one. Let's try that one. And usually I say, try it for a couple of weeks. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, you go back to the drawing board. So that's a work talk, and it is fantastic. But you got to teach the heart talk before the work talk. I want to turn, because I want to talk to you about the expectations. So, in expectations, there, we tend to have expectations that are really demands. And so I teach that there's a zone of integrity, and there is a zone of dependency. And in the zone of integrity, we have, I'm trying to find the page that this is on, and I should have brought some water because my throat keeps doing something weird. But in the zone of integrity, you say, here it is. I'll send y'all a little copy of this, okay? And in the zone of integrity, you have wants, hopes, desires, and longings. Wants, hopes, desires, and longings. And when our wants, hopes, desires, and longings are not met, then we tend to get disappointment, hurt, grief, discouraged, and we feel loss. Okay? Those are all reasonable things to feel. My hopes don't get met. I'm hurt. I grieve. But here's the zone of dependency. And when we have expectations and they go unmet, we want to keep expectations really wants rather than expectations. Because expectations tends to be, I need this from you. Not I long for this from you, but I need this from you. And we become entitled. I deserve this. I have the right to want and deserve and need this from you. And then it becomes a demand. It feels like a demand. And then it says, I cannot go on without this. I can't go on. I'm not going to, how many times have we heard, I will not live this way. I can't go on living this way. And then what happens is we have contempt. Blame, criticism, contempt. And contempt in the Gottman method is one of the four, the main things that kills a marriage is contempt. And then the emotions here, whereas the emotions in the zone of integrity are disappointment, hurt, grief, discouragement, and loss, the emotions in the zone of dependency is panic, anger, despair, devastation. We're just destroyed and totally distraught. We have resentment and we have bitterness. And then that leads to the contempt. So we lose our sense of self when we live underneath those expectations, and we lose our sense of self in the desperate dependent need for our spouse to be different so that we can be okay. And that's where we often see like codependency. I need this to be okay for me to be okay, where it's like, no, I'm going to be okay even if they don't meet all of my expectations. I'm going to be okay. So I'm going to read this paragraph because I think it's good. Clinging to desire too tightly compromises us. Leaky cracks begin to form in the foundation of our personal integrity. We lose our sense of self in the desperate, dependent need for our spouse to be different so we can be okay. If I need my spouse to provide something for me to be whole, then my integrity as a person becomes dependent on my spouse. And this throws me into a state of over-dependency and leaves me emotionally on a yo-yo string attached to my spouse. This would not be living in the fullness of whole integrity of the person God created me to be. I am whole and complete in Him. I have desires, wants, hopes, even longings my spouse can contribute to, but he or she is not my source. The Creator God, whose image I reflect, is my ultimate source. In the zone of integrity, my spouse can be a resource, contributing to my hopes, wants, desires, and longings. A spouse is part of God's provision for many of the things that we long for in relationship, but we run the risk of living over dependency and even contempt burrow into our hearts when we place a spouse in the place reserved for God. So I want to read you this example. Consider John and Susan, for example. John called Susan to announce his plan to play golf Saturday morning. Susan felt triggered, but she paused because she noticed she felt emotions that seemed to be out of proportion to the situation. Okay, what did she do? She stopped and did a care cycle. So as Susan gently attended to her heart, she realized she was feeling angry and starting to feel resentful because she expected John to be home on Saturday morning. By noticing these strong emotions, Susan realized she was holding on to an expectation about what John would do. She wanted to spend time together and feel connected to him as she attended to her heart. She was able to name the emotions and care for her heart, which lessened the emotions' intensity around the desire to spend time with John on Saturday. She was not giving up on the desire, but she was able to give up the expectation that he needed to be home on Saturday as she grounded herself in truth of what was in her power and what was not in her power. As a result, Susan could honestly talk to John about her disappointment and desire for a calmer place. John and Susan have been recovering from this trauma of betrayal. So in this example, John and Susan had a betrayal. Attending to their feelings has made all the difference in the process of recovery for them. All three journeys continue to heal and to be strengthened as they both attend to their hearts and relate to one another in a safer way. So that's a great example of a care cycle, of pausing and doing a care cycle, but recognizing Susan's heart of, this is what I want from him, but I'm going to be okay even if he doesn't choose that. All right. So what was I going to do next? Okay, another thing is the unhelpful thinking styles. So I have this little sheet that I give all of my clients. This is a workbook that I have that I utilize with Hope Restored, which is my with Focus on the Family. It's their program that they use for their intensive counseling. So, unhelpful thinking styles, the all or nothing thinking, sometimes called black and white thinking. If I'm not perfect, I have failed. Either I do it right or I don't do it at all. I use a lot of all or nothing thinking, even when I'm working with clients who maybe are trying to lose weight or, who can't get motivated to, well, I'm depressed and I just keep not getting up because I don't get anything done. And I go, I teach the idea of little bits of better and offensively small goals. So for instance, I had a client who is wanting to get healthier, and they're like, well, what I'm going to do is I want to start swimming. I want to start swimming with my daughter works at a pool, and I'll go swim like every day with her. And I said, oh, that's a lot. 7 days a week? You haven't exercised in years. And he's in recovery. He's been sober for 2 months. And I'm like, let's not give you goals that are too challenging for you. You need some wins. So what we're going to do is we're going to just say, when you get up in the morning, you're going to drink 8 ounces of water. That's going to be your healthy goal for the day. Well, I want to move goal. Great. Okay. So you're going to do a 2-minute exercise routine. I want to do push-ups. Great. How many push-ups can you do? I don't know. Okay, you're going to do 2 push-ups. That's what you're going to do. Offensively small goals, right? And then that celebrate, I'm getting that dopamine hit. And then what can you do over time? You build on those small goals. I want to drink more water. Great. You're going to have 1 glass of water in the morning, 8 ounces. That is your goal. We're not going to do 62 ounces because guess what? You're going to feel like a failure when you don't get those 62 ounces. We need to build small wins, little bits of better, offensively small goals. That is what I say. We're not having that all or nothing attitude. We're not having it. Okay, mental filter, only paying attention to certain types of evidence, noticing our failures, but not seeing our successes. This is where I teach our brains are programmed to see the negative. When our kids, I say this all the time to parents, when your kids walk in the house, they hang their backpack up, they put their coat on the hanger, but they leave their shoes and they left their scarf right there in the middle. Do you usually go, wow, I'm so grateful you put your jacket up and you put your backpack up? No, you notice what they didn't do. You didn't put your shoes up, you left your scarf over here. That is our mental filter. And so telling people and training people that's our brains trying to survive. That's our survival brain. We have survived because why? We see where the danger is. We look for the negative. Where is the risk? And that's that mental filter. So we have to adjust that. noticing not just our failures, not just what's wrong with our partner, but what's good with them too. Jumping to conclusions. There are two key types of jumping to conclusions: mind reading and fortune telling. Imagine we know what others are thinking and predicting the future. And then that emotional reasoning, assuming that because we feel a certain way that must be true. I feel embarrassed, so I must be an idiot. Labeling stupid, assigning labels to ourselves and to others. I'm a loser. I'm completely useless. They're such an idiot. Overgeneralizing. Everything is always rubbish. Nothing ever good happens. Seeing a pattern based on a single event or being overly broad in the conclusions that we draw. Disqualifying the positive. Discounting the good things that have happened or that you have done for some reason or another. That doesn't count. Magnification, catastrophizing, and minimizing. Blowing things out of proportion, catastrophizing or inappropriate shrinking something to make it seem less important. And then should, must, using critical words like should, must, or ought can make us feel guilty or like we have already failed. And that's the contempt. A lot of people think contempt is like very cruel, something really cruel. But it doesn't have to be cruel. It can be something like, you should know how to do that. Ugh, you're calling someone a name. You're being contemptuous. You're saying they're an idiot. That's how people can feel when they hear things like that. You should know. If we apply shoulds to other people, the result is often really frustrating. Personalization. This is my fault. Blaming yourself for taking responsibility for something that wasn't completely your fault. Conversely, blaming other people for something that was your fault. Sadly, I have a couple who I've been seeing, and there was an affair involved. And I think I shared this a little bit with you. They had not been fully honest in the sessions. And it really, in the sessions, the wife had a lot of reactivity, especially with the children. But after the affair, I learned a lot of information about what was happening in the marriage, that the husband was talking about an open marriage. He wanted her to do things like open the door when the delivery guy was new and not have any clothes on, and him like watch that interaction. He wanted her to dress really provocatively. He wanted her to pornography was a non-negotiable. He wanted her to kind of like fulfill these fantasies of her, but after all of this, he didn't help much around the house. She was kind of in charge of all the cleaning, and even in session at times, he would say, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to help with that. So if that's something you really want, you're going to have to do it yourself, because those things are not important to me. I'm going to focus on this over here because that's important to me. If that's important to you, you're going to have to do it. And he always said those things really respectfully, but I realized later, after I found out all these other things, that where he was very frustrated a lot of times, like, you don't need to be talking to the children that way, and you don't need to be. Hindsight now that it's come out, all these things, that, well, I didn't really think that you needed to know these things about our deep personal life, and her trying to protect him going, interesting. She blamed herself a lot, and he blamed her a lot for their problems, but looking at it from the new perspective going, this is not, you have been personalizing a lot of this and thinking that it was your fault, but in reality, this was a very, very unhealthy situation that I wasn't really knowing the full picture. So those are the unhealthy thinking styles. That is the focused marriage model. We've kind of integrated the focused marriage model and the Gottman method. I love both of those methods. In the Gottman method, y'all saw a little bit about that in your last time when you got to watch the videos, but I use their assessments, the Hope Restored assessments. They're good, but for private practice, I love the Gottman method assessments. I do pay for those. Now you can also have your clients pay for those. They cost about $200, and I will give my clients the option. If you would like to pay the $200, you can have access to Gottman tools, and that's all these videos, and you can assign homework to your clients to watch these videos from the Gottman method. They also have an app. The Gottmans also have an app where they can do what's called, and actually I'm going to pull it up right now because we've got a little bit more time. Is that still going? Yeah. Okay. Just a minute. Where are you? Here it is. Camouflaged. Let me actually say this. Okay, so in the Gottman method, remember I said earlier that contempt was a really big thing that is a big predictor scientifically in their research that is a predictor, a high predictor of divorce, contempt. But there's actually 4, and it's called the 4 horsemen, and it's criticism. So if there is a lot of criticism in a marriage, it is a high predictor of divorce. If there's high defensiveness, a predictor of divorce. If there's high contempt, a predictor of divorce. And if there's a lot of stonewalling, predictor of divorce. What are the antidotes to them? And I always say this all throughout working with my clients. So if I see one of those 4 horsemen come up, okay, what's the criticism? What's the antidote? The gentle startup. Hey, let's be gentle. Let's be slow, small bits. Let's be kind. Let's have that gentle startup, the heart talk. Defensiveness. What's the antidote to defensiveness? Actually taking personal responsibility is the antidote to defensiveness. What's the antidote to contempt? Describing your own feelings, your own needs. Don't describe your partner. And then what's the antidote to stonewalling? Do psychological self-soothing. Learning how to regulate your emotions helps you, because when you see stonewalling, if I see stonewalling, somebody shutting down, it is more likely that their heart rate is high than if I see someone kind of getting real reactive. Their heart rate's going to be high, but if they're shutting down completely, I guarantee you they've got a heart rate of about 100 beats per minute. All right, what I wanted to share with you was the rituals of connection. So rituals of connection is a homework that I give clients, and the idea is to build a set of rituals surrounding informal but significant daily events that often lead to arguments with couples. So you are building these rituals for each of the items in the exercise, and the rituals of connection need to be thought out and planned. When will it happen? How often? Where? Who will initiate it? And how will it unfold? So an example of a ritual of connection might be how we're going to greet each other at the end of the day. Will there be a hug, a kiss, a question like, what were your highs? What were your lows? You get to decide which rituals you like in your lives together using the questions in the exercise. Okay, so the questions might be, what is meaningful about this for you? When will this be done? How often will it be done? How long should it last each time? Who will initiate it? What will happen next? How will it end? How can we integrate this into our lives and count on it? Okay, so I'm going to give you all an example. Well, actually, first, let me, there's a whole list of opportunities. So eating out, taking leave of the others in the morning, like if somebody's leaving, if somebody's coming back, celebrating success, weekends, bringing friends into the homes, dinner parties, dates, falling asleep, taking off your clothes at night, getting into bed, New Year's, vacation, if somebody gets sick, even sex. So I have a client. I have a couple, and they are highly committed. Okay, so when we're thinking about the sound relational house, there's commitment and there's trust, and those are the walls of the sound relational house, and you'll get a copy of that sound relational house. And they are big on commitment and they're big on trust, but they have no passion. They are like roommates. There's no love. There's commitment. I trust, man, I feel safe with this person, but they just had no passion. But they're really working. They're like, we are very good friends, but we don't have passion. So the husband continued to want to have sex, and Thursday nights were their sex nights. But the wife, she's like, I feel, and she was very honest and vulnerable, and it was very safe. And she says, I feel, well, actually it was the husband said, when she doesn't want to have sex with me, when I can see that she's not into it, it makes me feel like I'm assaulting her. And I don't like that. And when we were talking on Thursday about this is their sex night, right? I told her I felt that way, and she said back to me, okay, wow, I'm glad that you shared that, because sometimes I feel that way. I don't feel like you're assaulting me. I don't feel it like it's violent, but it reminds me of like in the movies when I see a woman, having sex when she doesn't want to have sex. It doesn't feel violent to me. However, I do feel like, I really don't want to do this. And so we came up with a ritual of connection, and that both partners get a pass, and the other person can extend a pass as well. So they can say, hey, it's Thursday, this is our sex night, do you want a pass? Now, if they have a pass, they say, are you, if they say, well, I'm not in the mood for sex, then they can say, well, what are you in the mood for? That they don't get to go, okay, fine, you're not in the mood for sex, and then they're just separate from each other. What are you in the mood for? Well, I'm really in the mood to watch that movie that we were planning on watching, or I'm really in the mood for, holding hands. Or in this particular case, the wife was like, I'm okay with, I feel like what I can give right now is not all the foreplay, the kissing and the romance. I'm not there. I can give you sex, but I can't give you romance. And the husband was like, well, there might be days that I am okay with, just let's have sex. But I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for a connective interaction with you. And so there might be days I have to go, I'm going to pass. And what I'd rather do is let's turn on some music, and can we dance? Can we kind of be silly together? Or can we go play pickleball? Or can we? But we have to still, even if we don't engage in sex, we have to go, well, what are you in the mood for? And that's a ritual of connection. And it's fantastic. And both of them were like, I totally agree. Let's totally do that. I like that. So the other thing is that was a work talk as well. It can also be a work talk. Okay, we want to be in unity about this. We don't want it to feel yucky. So what are some ideas? Let's brainstorm it. Let's try it for a couple of weeks, and let's return back. So let's see, what else can I share with you about all of this? Let me just share with you what in the sound relational house, what that looks like. Okay, so I said in the relational house, there's trust and there's commitment. And then that bottom foundation is what's going on here? Close tab. Is the building love map. So knowing each other's world. And then the second layer is shared fondness and admiration, turning towards each other instead of away from each other, right? So when we're building that sound relational house, instead of, well, I'm not in the mood to have sex. Okay, well, let's just go to our different rooms. I feel totally rejected. Nope, we're turning towards each other. Okay, I'm not going to take offense to that. What would you like to do instead? The positive perspective, managing conflict. We're going to accept our partner's influence. We're going to dialogue about our problems. We're going to practice self-soothing so that we can stay engaged. We're going to practice self-soothing by doing our care cycles. And then we're going to look at making our dreams come true and creating shared meaning. All of those things come in the sound relational house. There's a list that you're going to get that's called the repair checklist. And I love the repair checklist because it gives a bunch of statements to use when you're in the middle of a conversation and it feels like, wow, did I get something wrong here? A feeling statement maybe. Wow, I'm feeling criticized right now. Can you rephrase that? And so let's say that I'm starting to feel a little bit triggered, but I'm still on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm not at a 7 yet. I'm still at a 5. And I can go, I'm going to try to stay engaged. I'm going to try to have that positive perspective of the other person. I'm in listener role. Hey, I'm feeling criticized right now. Could you maybe say that in a different way? Sure, let me rephrase that because that wasn't my heart. If I'm needing to calm down, I might be able to say, hey, I'm feeling unsafe right now. Can you kind of give me a hug to help me to feel safe again? If I'm feeling sorry about something, or I can see my spouse is getting reactive, I can say, hey, let me try that again. I think I really blew the way I just said that. Let me try that again. So there's lots of different things. It's 52 minutes in. I'm going to go ahead and put together an email and send you all these different resources over. And hopefully I'll be able to log on tomorrow. But if something's, going on and you don't see me on within 10 minutes of, or actually, I don't want you to listen to this because I don't want to, I will write this out because you'd have to watch this in order to hear me say that. But let me pray for you. So Lord Jesus, I just thank you for these women, God, and what you're doing in their lives and how you're developing them to be mighty, mighty healers, God. And you've created these women with the gift of healing, and you're anointing them with, God, with this gift of this anointing, this mantle of healer. And that is part of your heart, that you are healer, God, and you have given them this heart. And so I just pray that these resources that we've talked about, that they will be impactful and useful for their gifting and their calling. I trust you. We thank you. In your name, amen. All right. Go ahead and send me a text message when you have finished listening and watching the video. Bye-bye.